Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Page 73's info session for the 2026 application. I'm Michael Walkup. I'm the Artistic Director of Page 73. Thank you all for joining us, and I'm joined specifically from Page 73 here tonight with our Associate Artistic Director, Kari Olmon, waving there, and also our 2025 Page 73 Playwriting Fellow, Lori Felipe-Barkin, waving there.
Here, sorry.
We'll hear from everyone as we go along tonight. Thanks everyone for joining. Our goal tonight is to, of course, give you a detailed take on what this application is and answer any and all of your questions. We want this to be very useful and practical for you. That was a good reminder that for the most part, you might want to watch with your mute on, noise off, and unmute when you want to ask a question later on for sure. It'll keep the recording cleanest for all of us. So for starters, this application, oh wait, I think I just have the power to mute people. That's very exciting. Okay. This application is really the lifeblood, the primary pipeline of the company. This is how we meet just about every single playwright we've ever worked with in our 20 years now of running this application process. And so we take it very seriously. We devote a lot of resources to this, a lot of time, a lot of also paying for really talented readers to help us. So we take this really seriously, and we also always appreciate how seriously our applicants take this too. And it really is the best way to introduce yourself to Page 73 and to start a relationship with us as a company. To quickly go over the eligibility of who can apply, Page 73 works with playwrights who are residing in the United States. We don't care about your citizenship, but working here in the American theater as a playwright writing for American audiences, that is what we are focused on. We work with playwrights who are not full-time enrolled in a college or graduate program. If you have a question about whether your program is considered full-time or not, you can ask us that. But if you, for instance, were getting an MFA in playwriting, you would want to be applying the semester that you're about to graduate, but not in your first or second year. I said how much effort and how much resources we put into this application. So you're applying to us by the end of April, and we really do use the entire rest of the calendar year to get through everything. It's not fast, but that is a sign of how thoroughly we're using it. Sorry, so back to eligibility. The sort of primary career point where Page 73 is excited to work with playwrights is writers who haven't yet had a full off-Broadway premiere, something that runs for 23 or more performances with a full equity contract. You kind of have a sense of what that is, but if you ended up with questions about your specific place and eligibility, again, please feel free to shoot us a question. So this application is how you, if you are an eligible playwright, can introduce yourself to the company. And specifically, you can be applying for the fellowship, for the writers group, or for both. And to be clear, most people who live within the New York City area who can be in the writers group would apply for both. We're not really asking you to sort of parse it and think, oh, I don't know, maybe I should or shouldn't. Like if you're eligible, if you're available and you're sending us your application, check the boxes, apply for both, tell us how the resources will help you. The fellowship, of course, is the singular prize that we offer every year. It comes with a $20,000 cash prize for the playwright that gets spread out in 3 installments over the course of the calendar year. That's meant to help, of course, in all the ways that money can help playwrights. It also comes with a $10,000 budget for developing work, and that can mean anything from research and travel to workshops, whether those be very, very small, quick things or a more sort of stately workshop. And then additionally, Page 73, will also be producing a workshop of the fellows' work every year. It's really exciting for us to get to share the work with our audience also. We typically get around 450 applications for the fellowship, and we do pick one every year. It's highly competitive. That's sort of the big one. The place where we get to work with 8 playwrights every year is our writers group. A lot of times the fellow will be in the writers group if they're local, but that's not a necessary connection. So the writers group is calendar year, January to December. You meet in our office in Fort Greene, Brooklyn from 7 to 10 p.m. every other Tuesday night. So you do have to be able to be in Fort Greene, Brooklyn from 7 to 10 p.m. every other Tuesday night in 2026 in order to apply for the writers group. If you're not sure where you'll be, I'll just say this might be one of the FAQs we do later, but I'll just say it here. Just check the box. Check the box. We'll talk about it later. But the writers group is run by Kari and I together, and the writers are given 4 or 5 nights throughout the course of that year where they will be bringing in their own pages, and then the other nights they're there as the audience, as the responders, as the peers of the playwrights. So it's a working group. It's to be used for whatever you want it to be. We don't commission a play. We're not asking you to pick one thing to work on. It's a professional writers group that helps writers stay on deadline, give themselves new tasks, new projects, and bring in really whatever they want to. We also have lots of snacks and beverages at every meeting. That's very important to us. Um, so we have Lori with us tonight. The idea is to hear from her a bit how she's choosing to use her fellowship year. She's also a member of this year's writers group, so she has experience with both programs, and also will be available for your questions later on too, also about applying. But I'll start, Lori, with my first question to you. Simply, would you mind telling us all how you're using this fellowship year and how the writers group sort of plays into that or offers you other tools?
So I think there's a multi-use for this year. Of course, with the project support, I'm really focusing on and using both the like space I've been given and also like the resources I've been given to dive into a topic that is interesting to me and important to me without per se knowing precisely what I need to say, but just to investigate a question or multiple questions. And the other part of like the actual writers group for me is having a group of colleagues in cohorts um, who, I think I always become a better writer when I listen, when I'm workshopping with other people, when I'm hearing other people's work and vice versa. And so the writers group is also giving me that. It's just it feels like a year of time and space to nourish my creative inclinations right now and in a group of other people.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Um, and you're maybe going to be researching, right? You don't have to get into every last detail about the piece, but sometimes people ask how the fellow sort of development budget gets used. And, we've had years where people just want like 3 small workshops in a row to really help push them. But in your case, you came to us and you talked about a project that might involve some travel and some research.
Yes, so I'm planning on traveling to Ecuador. And more specifically, I am planning on having I come a little bit from a devising background. So I'm planning on using the money to hire actors down there with a director and work in a devising room for a week to help generate, not necessarily writing, but it's to sort of tap into ideas. If anybody's into Jung, like what is the collective unconscious doing? What is on everyone's mind at this moment? And that's what I think devising is really useful for.
I love that. I love that. It's like one of the most it's just such a distinct way to use the resources. And I really remember reading about that even in your initial application and thinking that that was so compelling. Um, Kari, we're gonna hand things over to you now. Does that sound good?
Yes, let's do it. So at this moment, I am going to share my screen. I think I've managed to do that successfully to walk you through the application itself, can sort of get familiar with the module. And then if you have any questions for us about it, we will get to that later in the session. So here it is on our website, page73.org/application. The deadline is Sunday, April 27th, 11:59 p.m. We gotten some applications already, but we fully expect hundreds of them to come in the final day, the final hour. Can't wait. We love that. Programs overview. This is what Michael just walked you through about the fellowship and the writers group. And also with the eligibility requirements as well. So when you're applying, just take a moment to read through these, make sure they all apply to you. And as always, if you have any questions or you're unsure, you can reach out to us at info@page73.org. Here is our timeline. We really do spend the days, weeks, and months between April 28th and mid-September reading everyone's applications. We collaborate with Beehive Dramaturgy Studio to make sure all of the applications are read and evaluated multiple times. And that is how we narrow down to our semifinalists, our finalists, and ultimately our fellow, while also building the writers group. So it is a very long and involved process, and one that we look forward to every year because we get to meet so many new wonderful playwrights. Submission procedure. Only through this form. We do not accept applications through any other channels or really at any other points throughout the calendar year. Right. Application materials, which consist of this form, a sample, a 10-page sample from a full script, the script itself, they have to be the same, the sample and the full length, and then a resume. And all of that is uploaded right to this form here, where you fill out your information, you indicate eligibility and which programs you think you would like to be considered for. And now, if you have applied to us previously, if you filled out this form before, this is where it looks a little different this year. In years past, we just asked you to upload a single document for your letter of intent touching on the questions that we pose. This time around, we have broken it up into small answer boxes. And we have done that really because the letter of intent is so important to the application. Of course, your writing sample and your full length are very important as well, and we spend a lot of time with them. But as we evaluate applications, we're also looking at the playwright's self-awareness, where they see themselves in their career, what their goals are, and it's really important to be able to communicate those to us. So in order to tease that out a little more, we have broken it up. So getting both the introduction to the writer and their work, and then also the question, how would the Page 73 development programs help you address your artistic challenges? And then how would they help you address your professional challenges? So all very important to reflect on. They have to be uploaded directly to this form. There is a word limit, so we do, recommend drafting your answers elsewhere before copying and pasting them in, as you cannot save in this form. And then we also give you a chance to briefly contextualize the sample that you're submitting. We know 10 pages is a challenging assignment. It never reflects the breadth of your work. So this is your chance to tell us either where in the play it is, if it's at the beginning, where it's headed, if you're not sharing 10 pages from the beginning, sort of what's come before this, or if you want to comment on any stylistic elements that might be difficult for us or our readers to grasp in those 10 pages. And then you go ahead and upload your sample, your script, and your resume. And that is the application, as always, free, open through April 27th. Stop screen sharing there. So now that Michael has introduced the programs and I have taken us on a speed run through the application itself, Lori, I want to ask you how you approached your application this year, both in terms of your letter and then also the choosing your sample.
I mean, with respect to the letter, I wrote very authentically or very honestly. Like I wrote earnestly about the questions I was contemplating. I wrote earnestly about how I perceived myself and where I was. I wasn't, I guess I say that because I think it's very easy when faced with an application to sit there and try to like imagine what the adjudicator is looking for. And I think I really didn't. I think I like wrote truly about what I'm thinking about in my own writing and where I find myself. What was the other question? Sorry, what was the second half of that?
When you chose your sample, did you choose a play that you felt was complete? Was it recent? How did you decide what you were going to share?
I chose a piece that I had already feedback on and was pretty far along on its way, and that I knew, just to be quite honest, had payoff right from the first 10 pages. I think it's really tricky. I know because I do it all the time, having to like send extracts of plays, right? And it just so happened that the play that I sent was both further along for me in its evolution, but also within the first 10 pages announced itself.
Yes, awesome. And I think thinking back to your application, another thing that was successful about your letter too was just the specifics that you got into, the specific projects you wanted to pursue and the timeline for doing them. We and our application readers do respond well to, specifics over generalizations, always. So Michael, I'm going to hand it back to you to tee up the next section.
Yeah, we have some FAQs because they are F'd, AID F. They're frequently asked. And to pick up on what Lori was just talking about, picking the 10-page sample is often one of the questions. Lori, I think you described so well how if you sort of had this sense that you could be sending us both the start of a play and one that really got going, that was a good choice, and it was a good choice. Also making room that the 10 pages might not be the first 10. We're very, very open to that. I really encourage you to use that text box Kari showed where you could provide some context. If your sample is going to sort of start in the middle of the action, you're also very welcome to just add a stage direction of like one sentence that's like, before this, the characters were at dinner and they just got home, whatever it is. And so thinking about, I think you used the phrase announce, how the writing or how the play sort of announces itself in the pages. That might be my new favorite way of thinking of it. Because I use the example of realism a lot here. If you're writing a play mostly in the realist mode, there's a really good chance that the first 10 pages are going to be behavioral and a very slow drip of exposition before we start to really understand where we are. That's just like an archetypal form. That's not maybe going to make the best sample because the readers, we're just not going to kind of know where you're going with it or what you can do. Like, is it going to stay quotidian? Is that the point? Or is an alien about to enter? And that's the point. So thinking about a section of your play that announces your sort of what you're up to is, I think, a really great way to pick a sample. Also, totally acknowledging it's one of the hard parts of this application. Um, and to just stick with another FAQ on this topic, the sample really does have to be from the play that you submit. The full length and the sample are the same play, because what you're hoping is that you move forward and people start reading the full play and not just the 10 pages. So you want to have that teed up for the readers, as we sort of instruct them through the stages of reading. Another I should say we're at the point now where you will also be able to start asking questions as we go through these FAQs. We're happy to pepper them in. I think on this Zoom, the raising hand function works really well. And if that's giving you any trouble, send a chat or flash your hands like this or something. But we want to make sure we can do that. But the FAQ I was just about trying to offer was for people who have applied before. A lot of times they'll wonder if they should be submitting a new play or a different play than they did last time. And it's a tricky question. I will say for sure the answer is not you have to submit a different play. We understand and we have frequently, I would say, read the same play twice. It could be that it is the play that just best represents what you're doing, that gives sample the best, that you feel like really introduces yourself to a reader who might not know you. And that might not have changed in the last year. That might still really be the best choice. And then I would encourage you to do that. If you have any doubts, if you're thinking, well, it didn't work last year, maybe, or the sample, you might want to think about what sample you chose or something like that. But bias towards the newest or the most recent isn't necessarily always the best choice if it's not fully fleshed out enough to sort of give us a sense of who you are, in which case you might want to default to the sort of more completed piece that really allows us to get to know you. All right, I see some hands. So I forget how this works. I'll say your name, I guess, and uh Kari or I will answer. Okay. Oh, I can do the ask to unmute. Perfect. I'm gonna ask Doug to unmute and ask.
Hi, thank you so much for the space. I really appreciate it. Just curious about the way page 73 defines full length. There are plays that are like 60 pages, 90 pages, 145 pages. What does that feel like for you and for your readers?
Wow, of all the questions, this doesn't feel frequently asked, and so I don't have my pat answer ready to go. So now I'm going to think on my feet unless Kari wants to save me. But I would say all of those lengths you described sound full length to me. I think what we're trying to avoid is like 10-minute plays or 30-page one-act plays. That feels a little less than a full length. And again, if you think of it in terms of the real estate you're essentially making for yourself in the application process, if you get past that 10-page sample, you're gonna be excited to share, I think, more than just 10 more pages with the reader. So I think that's part of the instinct. And the other thought I would add to that is, one reason we talk about full-length plays versus short plays is while we are a home for early career playwrights, there is a stage of writing that's sort of too early career for us, which is maybe you've just written a 10-minute play or two. Maybe you've just finished your very first play ever. We really are looking for the playwrights who are a few steps farther down the professional path, have really taken a crack at some full-length plays, and now can really take our resources and use them. You'll see how those questions in the letter of intent are very like, how will you use these resources? This is a very it's a professional tool we're looking to give you, not simply a like an award for a writing sample or something like that. What do
Uh,
you think, Ari? Anything to add?
No, I think you summed it up very well.
Not very briefly. Does that make sense, Doug?
it does. I have to run. Do you mind if I jump the line and ask one more quick question about the
Okay, go for
resources?
it, go for it, go for it.
I think talking about money is always a weird thing to do, and since this does come with like both a payment as well as resource money, like how specific can a person be? Does that feel, I know we were talking about the current writer and how specific that was, but like an itemized list of like, here are the plans. How would that fit into this process?
We don't ask you to go that itemized, or we don't ask, you to submit a proposed budget along with your application or anything that specific. The level of specificity is this is the play I would like to workshop. I hope to do 2 workshops, 3 workshops. I want to plan a trip to fill in the blank. So we can get a sense of the shape of the fellowship year that's being proposed. Once a fellow is named, we then work with them very closely to figure out how the development budget, the 10K that we administer together, how that will be used in a way that makes sense. And so the fellow gets the most mileage out of it. So it's really more than budgetary details, having a sense of what you would do with it, and also a realistic sense. It's a nice chunk of development change, but 10K doesn't go forever. It's not, no one can move to New York on that amount of money. So that kind of self-awareness is important too.
Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Those were great questions. Thanks, Doug. All right, Z, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Yeah, hello. I just had a quick clarifying question. The play that we are submitting in the application, is that necessarily the same play that we would be developing in the program?
Great question. Really glad to have the chance to answer that. It could be, but more often than not, I would actually say it probably isn't. And it's sort of back to what I was feeling my way around in that other answer about if it's the play that really represents what you do, it might be sort of done. It might be sort of set, and you might be on to new, just scraps of ideas that you're hoping to piece together. And so your application, you might want to talk about how this new scrap of an idea you have is challenging you because it's different than what you've been doing, and you would appreciate the dramaturgical support for the year as you tried something new. But the writing sample you gave us was what you're emerging from, perhaps. Lori, for instance, it was Floor that you submitted, right? I mean, okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And so we're really excited, actually, just next week to be doing a big public workshop of this play that Lori submitted. But interestingly, it's not particularly a rewriting workshop or scratching it all out workshop. It's about getting it embodied and getting it in front of an audience. So that play of Lori's was kind of ready for that step. And this is pretty early in the year also for a fellowship workshop. Whereas the research play, that's going to require travel and some collaboration, that Laura, I think you were describing ideas or instincts on, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be a mess. Floor is not a mess, but the other play is going to be a mess until it stops being a mess. It's the bottom line.
Yeah. I'm gonna okay. Leonard, I see, is physically raising his hand, so I'm gonna give that person a chance here for a second. We have time for all of this. I hope you do, but no rush. But okay, Leonard.
This is going back to Lori's point. She said something about using her fellowship money to do something, and you said it was brilliant, and I couldn't understand what she said, or maybe I didn't recognize what it was, some kind of devising group, but I probably didn't hear it correctly. What is it?
Should I explain it?
Yeah.
Okay, so devised theater is a way of making work in which you and a company of actors sort of generate material on your feet. It's not like, I guess, comedy improv in the sense that, like, the point isn't these like sort of like quick, and no disrespect to comedy improv, I love comedy improv, but they're not sort of like quick fun games with a comedic end. Like usually like you come in with a big question or a theme or an idea that you're trying to explore, and you come into a room and everyone just sort of like devises around it. It's like playing. But what I find useful about that is that how everyone's playing kind of reveals where everyone's at psychologically or emotionally at a point in time. And I think sometimes really gets to the heart of something faster, more efficiently, and more honestly than sitting and staring at a blank computer screen. So that's what devising is, and that's why I like it.
And then you're gonna use that to start generating your draft.
Yeah, like in my project in particular, there's cultures and peoples that I am not a part of. And so it's important to me to just sit back and watch them play and see what's like generating among them and see what sort of conversations and questions are coming into the room.
Thanks, Lori. All right, Miriam, I'll ask you to unmute.
Hi, thank you so much for making yourselves available for this, and thank you for a simple application form. I appreciate it so much, and I'm sure other people in this room do too. I wanted to ask if I am someone who makes stuff for theater, but also I'm a poet and I do some performance and installation. And if I am proposing a work that includes all of those elements, is that something that is welcomed for this cycle, or are you not looking for musicals and operas that are made from erasure poems of a creative nonfiction book, for example? That is one question. And then sort of secondary to that, may I then include in my resume my other work that would be pertaining to this task that I'm setting myself of like poetry, whatever else?
Yeah, well, to take your first question, I mean, yes, we're pretty open-minded in terms like the Devise project that Lori's pursuing is, maybe a little different than the very traditional like playwright driven sitting down in a room to write a play and then bringing it in, but we're excited to explore that. And while we have some limitations within our own sort of off-Broadway world and how we, hire and contract actors and directors to work with us in rehearsal space and such. We are flexible and we are always interested to hear new proposals. We're interested in unconventional uses of space and approach. So I think definitely just write it out and make the case for it, and we would look forward to reading about it. And in terms of the resume, yes, adjacent experience is definitely welcome if it helps, put together a complete picture of you as an artist. It doesn't just have to be a list of plays, but sort of the holistic sense of the artist. Like acting resumes are perhaps less helpful to us in this situation, but in terms of overall artistic output, definitely.
Well, can I clarify one thing?
Of course.
Did you at the beginning say that this is an opportunity for people who have not ever been produced, or did I mishear that?
Yeah, or not produced at the scale of a full off-Broadway premiere. We've worked with writers who've had small productions or had actually full productions in Minneapolis, but just haven't had the New York City off-Broadway premiere. That's the category of writer we work with. But no productions at all is okay too.
Okay, thank you so much.
I was just going to add about the resume because we got a chat question about it. What are we looking for? I think a sense of your body of writing is really helpful so that we do sort of understand on the spectrum of your career if this is your third go or if this is your 30th go. Institutions that you've also gotten to work with, it helps us build a context for you. It does not need to read like an academic CV. There are some folks who really do work in both academic writing and playwriting. And I'm not sure I've ever found like the list of articles and journal entries particularly useful. I mean, include them if it's important to you, of course, but it really is a playwriting resume, and understand that might be kind of brief because that's the career point of playwrights we're working with. But that's the most important thing to us. Okay, Rebecca Hamner, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Oh, hello. Thank you. Yeah, I had a question about like the 8-person cohort and kind of your methodology in building that out. Like, are you, when you get all of these applications, are you thinking like homogenous, like what is going to speak to one another? Are you kind of just taking like the strongest applications, the one that really speak to the, you know, the ethos of the company? Like, kind of how do you build that out? And what, I mean, I'm curious, Lori, as well, like you're in the room. How does it feel to be with these like playwrights, and how do you work together? I think it's a broad question, but I'm curious about that.
Yeah, Lori, I'm curious for you to answer first in terms of how you think we put together this group.
I have no clue. Oh, truly, I have no clue. Everyone's a really good writer and very different from each other. There's no, I would say, like, there's no specific style, aesthetic, way of writing that I can concretely point to, other than everyone really like comes in with great ideas and are skilled.
Yes, good boy.
Yeah, that's actually the formula. We're looking for, of course, people writing at a certain level at what they're trying to do, but we very specifically do want writers who don't feel like they're writing in the same way, so that the feedback can be enriched through that, so that we can just, I don't know, be really interested and intrigued. We have folks writing realism, we have folks writing avant-garde, we have folks who include music, we have folks who include movement. And we do really consciously look at that. Like the thing about, we might get to say like, oh, the fellow's our favorite writer that we've met that year. The writers group is a little less just a love fest, although there's so many incredible writers in every year's application. There's lots of love to go around, but we do end up getting quite particular about the sort of breakdown. Another example is we love when there's really, really early career folks and folks who are still within our mission, haven't had that off-Broadway premiere, but maybe have been doing it for quite some time, because that's another form of conversation that can happen across different types of experiences.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. That's a great question. Okay, Monique.
Yes, hi. So my question has to do with the application. It's because you ask about the artistic challenges, and then the other one is professional challenges. And I'm just wondering, for a writer, what's the difference? That's my question.
Well, for the artistic challenges, we could be something that you're grappling with in your own work creatively, like you're looking to become like stronger at writing plot development, for instance, or you want to try writing in a different style. You've been writing in one mode for a while, now you want to try something else. So really getting into the creative part of the process. And then the professional challenges, because we are, a service for a professional service for playwrights, then it's getting into some of the industry challenges. Like, have you been able to do you feel like you're getting your writing out there to institutions? What are you struggling with? Are you struggling with representation, looking for agents, barriers to access? So there's kind of the creative side and then the pragmatic side, because at page 73, we are, concerned with both elements.
Thank you. I'm trying to do a little double duty in answering some of the chat questions quickly in the chat, but the next hand I see up is Adrian.
Hello. Regarding questions about, I have a question regarding the for those who be involved maybe in a certificate program. So I'm kind of in one right now with City College, but I'm hoping it's gonna end at the end of this year but there might be a chance, I'm not sure, it might bleed into 2026 early on, but it would be more like in a working space instead. Like it's definitely my last semester. Would that kind of interfere with being a part of page 73?
I don't think so, and we could look at the real specifics. I would encourage you to apply the sort of, you know, the final semester of a program where you're maybe mostly out in the field but still in getting your credit or something like that hasn't really been a conflict. The spirit of that eligibility line is that if you're getting the support of the Hunter MFA program, then that's awesome. And wait till you don't have that to come get the support from us. It doesn't sound to me that this would exactly be that redundancy that we're trying to avoid.
Oh yeah, it would just be more working. I'll be working for like a book publishing office.
Yeah, I think that's completely fine.
Oh, great, thank you.
We have a related question that came in the chat. A part-time low residency grad program that finishes in June. Yeah, I think that's fine. So for instance, like we've worked with playwrights who are in the Juilliard playwriting program, which is a part-time low residency. I mean, I don't remember exactly what it is. I think it's once a week, but like that's not a problem. Like they're not, just a certificate you're pursuing for lots of professional reasons, and it's great, but it's not absorbing you in the way that if you're up at Yale or if you're out at Brooklyn College or if you're, you know, doing one of those MFA programs where that's really what you're doing. You know, however many credits a semester. So that's the spirit of that. And again, if you're just not sure, you don't want to go through the application just to learn we didn't like it, like shoot an email to info@page73.org with all the real specifics, and then we'll just make sure. I don't want to waste anyone's time. Okay, Maisie.
Hi, thanks. So this is, I'm wondering, in terms of looking forward to 2026, and if I have a plethora of ideas in different ways that I, you know, this show I want to be developing, and here's how I might do it in this one. And then I have this really new idea, you know, and I don't know where I'll land in 2026 in terms of what will be the thing on the front burner. From a application reviewer's perspective, is it more useful to paint that as the picture of like, here's the broad geography, here are all the ideas I might do, or and knowing that there's a, you know, a word count limit, but or to maybe focus in on a few of them that are particularly exciting right now and kind of flesh those out a bit more, and then a sort of, yeah, I have a couple, I guess, follow-up or related questions, but I'll stop talking right now.
Kari and I were playing a game of mute chicken to see.
Sorry, I got stuck on mute. I think that, you know, as part of thinking through your answers to questions, landing on the specific projects that really excite you at the time of the application is probably your best way in, just to give us a sense. You know, it doesn't have to be narrowed down to a single project or even two projects. Sometimes people will tell us about the 3 projects that they're most excited about at a given time. And, you know, a fellow is ultimately not beholden to every last detail of what they've proposed in their application. We know that things change over 6 months, 8 months. What you're working on in April 2025 may not be front of mind in January 2026. And we welcome that. So really, you know, make the case for the projects that excite you the most now. Probably, you know, going into much more than 3 can give the application a more diffuse feel. I'm generalizing a little bit, there's always exceptions, but as you know, it's 1 year with a fixed budget, and there is only so much that can be accomplished with that. So yeah, I just encourage you to lean into the ideas that excite you most at the time of writing, flesh them out as best as you're able, and then sort of take it, the process will take it from there.
Great, thanks. And is that in like the professional chat? Like, where specifically do those things go? You know, like I know there's the like current artistic challenges. My brain could kind of slot it into any of them, but is there a place where that really specifically goes?
Yeah, it seems to me like between the intro and the artistic challenges would be the best spot. The intro in that you're showing the things that are most interesting to you, what you want to do with the theater you're working on. And artistic challenges, really, if it's that one of those pushes you or excites you, or you know you need particular support because it involves research or it involves, you know, complicated structure or something like that. I think that's probably your strongest.
Great.
Yeah.
And then if I can just squeeze in the one little more thing, is there anywhere where I can see like sample as someone who sometimes struggles with executive functioning around things, are there any like sample applications that are available for looking at? Or is that not something? I understand that most of the applications would have come from specific writers, and that might not be something that they would want to share, but
Yeah, we don't actually have any of that to share because they are such personal documents, I'll be honest. Yeah. But we're excited to read what people, you know what I mean? Like I don't want it to start feeling like an assignment. It's a chance to really just like let us get to know you and your brain. And so however that comes out, please do answer the questions. Don't get me wrong. It matters. But we're excited to read it. Cool. All right. Okay, Lila. Oh,
Thank you. I have a question about being an early career playwright. I'm mostly a new play director and have done a lot of work in the new play space, but I'm sort of relatively new to playwriting. And so I'm curious, like you were mentioning, like I've only got one full-length play right now. And so I'm curious, like if I would, is my kind of area still falling into like too early to apply, wait till you've written some more plays? Or is it okay to apply anyway because I'm really looking for a place to like have a structured area to write more plays?
yeah, it's a good question. If it really is like you have written one play and now you're starting your second, I would stick to the idea that that's probably too soon. But I want to not discount the new play experience you have as a director because in a way that's what that eligibility is aiming to get at. It's someone is like professionally able to use tools to make the work. Um, which is, for instance, it's different that we're not an undergraduate program, right? We're not like the place you write your first play and discover that you love it. We're hopefully where you end up a few years later. So if you choose to apply, because there's no, I don't know, metal detector at the door. So like if you choose to apply, just know that that's going to be I don't know, weakness or like a question that's being wondered about your application. And I think make the case for all of your new play work as part of your professional new play experience, therefore making you ready to take advantage of these opportunities and run with it. That would be my advice there.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Mindy?
Hi, so first a quick question. Do you meet in the summer?
We take July and August off.
Okay. My other question is, it sounds to me from hearing this like we're almost writing the application for the fellowship, not so much about the writers group, and then you pick people for the writers group based on their answers. Does that make sense as a question?
I love that question. I love the chance it gives us to clarify. Yeah, Kari, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, with the application, it's one application for both programs, for one program, whatever you're choosing. So sometimes people do apply just for the writers group, in which case they'll use the personal and professional challenges sections to explain why being in a community with 7 other writers is useful to them at this juncture. The majority of applicants do apply for both, though, so they will take, a sentence or two in each section to explain why they need the fellowship for both professional and creative reasons. Is there anything you'd add, Michael?
Yeah, and if it is a writers group only application, like for whatever reason, that's just the only thing you want to go for, then I think you would just, what we're looking for is then you would focus on what is that resource? Well, that resource is biweekly meetings. It's some money. There's $3,000 also. It's a chance to be in community and all of that. And you would explain how those were going to help you with your artistic and your professional challenges, which you should do if you're applying to both too.
But if it's for both, it's more specific about the projects I have, along with the support of a community, in other words.
I think that's right. I think that's right. I don't want to get over my skis with this answer, but what we're looking for is someone who everyone needs, but like someone who's going to take the resources in the calendar year of 2026 that we have and really push themselves to some next step with them. And talking about a specific project is really useful because that might be exactly what you're trying to push forward. But thinking of it that way rather than I'm going to win over the judges because my project is the most interesting sounding project in the world. It might be, but like we really will read 500 proposals and a lot of them are very interesting. If it was just an interesting idea, that would not get you the fellowship. If it was, and here's how this resource that page 23 has helps this interesting idea move forward, that's what gets you the fellowship or the writers group. Thank you. Okay. TC. I can't ask TC to unmute because TC is unmuted. Okay. Nick.
Hello. Hi. Sorry, I am unmuted now. Thank you so much for doing this. It's really great. There was a question about solo shows in the chat. I feel that a solo show I have written is the most authentic representation of my work so far. I know for a fact that it has a runtime of over an hour, but the text itself is only 20 pages. Does that still, would that still count as a full length? Because it was performed at Whitefire and that it was like over an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, solo shows are a very interesting area when you get into page counts and lengths and things like that. Because also formatting, I mean, you could probably decide to make it 60 pages if you press the enter key a lot. So yeah, I would trust in your instinct that that's a full length, and if that represents your work, then that's what you should send. I will just add, and no one asked, but a risk of a solo show, I have no idea if yours is autobiographical, but like the risk of the autobiographical solo show is that a reader who doesn't know you might then come to understand that you can do this one thing, right? That you can write about maybe some personal experience that you had. And inevitably, their question is going to be, do they work in the dramatic form? Like, do they also write plays? Do they also write theatrical events? I don't want to even be too limited. Musicals, operas, whatever. So if you're going to submit the solo show that's maybe, especially if it's like a first person personal account, I would be sure to use my letter of intent to explain a lot about what else I do with my writing. I guess I'm expressing bias here, but I don't think that the page 23 programs, I guess if someone is going to be like Spalding Gray about it and just do autobiographical solo show after solo show after solo show, then that works. Then that's your artistic project as a playwright. But if you have a solo show that is maybe particularly autobiographical, and then you also write plays, I do think there's just like a slight risk of there being a trap in that solo show submission where it's like, well, we don't now know what your plays are like. So I'm acknowledging this is a slightly messy answer, and solo shows do hit a slightly odd spot. But I would just be thoughtful about how to balance it out between the letter and the sample, which are always read together. They're never read separately. They're not scored separate. Like it's, you read it as a thing. So think about how
Gotcha.
that creates a story.
Yeah, it isn't autobiographical. So,
I know,
but
I just
thank
straw manned your entire question. But in
That's
case
okay.
someone out there was wondering.
Sure, sure. No, sorry. I didn't mean to make it about me.
One of the most successful applications I ever read was George Brandt's Grounded, and that was one actor. It was not autobiographical, and we produced it. It was so good. So, in case you took what I just said as negative about solo performance, there's a counterexample right there. I'm going to stop talking now. TC, let's try again.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. So I have a possibly overly large question, but I'm acutely aware of my own ignorance on this topic regarding intelligent use of budget in the, I feel like the SpongeBob cartoon that says collect underpants ? Profit. And I'm deeply aware of my own ignorance in this because my day job is in book publishing. And I know how many people have the most brilliant novel ever, no idea what to do in the middle. Profit. I will admit that I do not, in traditional theater, have any idea what appropriate usage of budget is, especially because my theatrical background is all very like indie, and I'm already at the state where I would normally pitch some producer for like a one weekend event and then just go. But that's like how to just vanish into obscurity. I have no idea how in off-Broadway and in like traditional theater, what correctly happens in that middle stage after it's been workshopped. My other thing is because I have access to a lot of actors as a performer on the outside, I don't have difficulty getting a group of actors to do table reads over and over, like just in my house in the Bronx. But what does one do if one has critical ambitions for like traditional off-Broadway? What's in the question mark box that is the appropriate way to utilize 30 grand intelligently?
All right. Well, I think you want to be thinking about who, like, it's really great to hear about like the table read thing, right? So that's a resource that you have. So then the flip side of that is sort of like who can you get your work to, who can hear it, who can that audience be of a general theater goer, of maybe of industry. I think I think that a workshop for and if part of what you're asking is like just scale of cost, like a workshop is probably a $7,500 thing, right? So Page 73 is going to produce a workshop for the fellow, and if the fellow wants another workshop like of the same full week scale and like that, that's going to be 3/4 of the development budget, and then there's going to be 1/4 left for smaller things, for travel, for research, for uh, books you need to buy, shows you need to see, whatever that might be. And I think a year that had two big workshops in it would be a very specific and savvy type of year for someone who has experience and has work ready to show and just needs that audience and needs people to start knowing who they are. And so that proposal then might become, I have two plays. One is ready to go soon. One I'm going to work with you on getting ready so that later in the fall, maybe that one's going to go. And between these two large public workshops, I'm going to have sort of like announced myself to the scene. I think I've maybe answered, and that's trying to just use the 10K that is the development budget. The 20K personal budget, yes, you on your own could be paying people to work with you or whatever, but that's not really meant to get funneled back into a Page 73 workshop. That is really meant to be more life support and that. So the $10,000 self-directed budget plus the whatever your workshop costs that we do, we pay for. Like Lori just happened to put 10 actors in her play, so that's on a different scale, and we're very excited about it.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you.
All right, let's get Grace for our last question, and then we'll let you go tonight.
Hello. I feel like I have a very classic frequently asked question. We've all applied to the fellowship, and then what is the timeline? When are semifinalists announced, finalists, and then do you ask for additional materials?
Yes. So semifinalists are usually announced sometime in September. And when at the point of being named a semifinalist, then we go back to those writers, 10, 12, 15. The number fluctuates a little every year. And we do ask for a second sample to read then. So while the initial sample might be, the playwright's calling card, as Lori said, the play that announces itself, the second one can be an opportunity to share something a little fresher, newer, less polished perhaps, because at that stage as we're truly getting to know the narrowed down group of writers, we're excited to dive into they're working on in that moment. And we are good readers of new work, and we're good at meeting each play where it is. So we definitely welcome newer stuff then. And then we work our way towards naming finalists in December. And then the fellow is notified before the end of the calendar year and announced publicly in January of 2026. All right.
We're gonna end the part that's gonna be on YouTube now. So I just want to thank everyone, and Kari and I can linger for a few remaining questions, but I want to give everyone else the opportunity to go. But thank you so much. And again, it's info@page73.org if you have specific questions anytime before that application is due. Maybe not the night before, that's a weekend, we might not see it. But thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.